This is the Midwestern Whisper. This is Whisper 34. And I'm going to read a short story that I personally wrote 2 years ago. And keep in mind that I write primarily thriller or science fiction. This is only a 3.5-page story. But before I start it, I want to say that I think I figured out my microphone problem. This is just a cheap headset that is mainly cords, and it had about 15 knots in it. And it's still not quality, but it definitely seems to sound better now. Okay, this story is entitled, Here's to You, Death Immortal. I wrote it on April 18th, 2009. I have always been full of dread at the thought of death, yet paradoxically I have also been enthralled. One of my first memories was being 5 years old, laying in bed and picturing myself as a skeleton. The thought of dying has followed me throughout life, and it has aged me and frightened me and hovered over me like a vile disease. When I, Lance Granger, turned 35, I finally decided I'd had enough of the torment. I was tired of the preoccupation that was hastening my life to the very thing I feared. I decided that year to fight back against death. I refused to give in to its disability. I went back to school in the fall of 2000. At first it was 2 years of community college. Then I transferred to a 4-year liberal arts school, and following that I was accepted into medical school. When I graduated medical school in 2008, I wasted no time specializing in genetic engineering. When I finished with school in 2010, I was 45 years old. I was not exactly young, but neither was I old. But my work with dying and dead people had depressed me to the point that I really did not have the heart to take my professional career seriously. I had set up a laboratory in my basement and tackled the main problem to which I had become a doctor to begin with, death. I had the most modern equipment that was available, although it was strapping my money. I conducted experiments on rats and mice and other small animals. My breakthrough came in the spring of 2012 when I was finally able to isolate the frustratingly fleeting age gene. Its very existence was circumspect in the professional world, but I had known that it was very real. Using retroviruses to modify the gene into 24 rats, my own personal clinical trials had begun. As I waited to see if the adult rats would outlive their 2 to 3 year lifespans, I continued my work on the HG. It was a completely new theory, but I also believed that there was a gene amongst the 25 to 30,000 in the human body that could also make a being impervious. Early in 2013, I found and isolated my latest discovery. I modified all the rats with the gene as well. I only went to work to fund my private work, but I was still taking out large loans to cover expenses. I sometimes feared my reputation and financial future was going to fall down around my feet, but then I became resolute once again. I knew that I was the one man that was destined to defeat death. I could not quit, no matter the cost. By the summer of 2013, I began to experiment on a few rats. I doused one in gasoline, dropped it into a metal barrel, and tossed the lit match into the drum. A large fire sprang up immediately, and I could hear the frightened creature squealing. When the flame died down, I peered into the barrel. The creature was singed black, but it looked up at me, otherwise unharmed. I was ecstatic. I cut the throat of another rat, watching blood drip out of it. To my amazement, the skin stitched up and healed before my very eyes. In mere minutes, the rodent was moving around again in its cage as if it was never wounded. I tried to poison, smash, microwave, and freeze the rats, all of whom initially reacted as any rat would under such torture, but within minutes all recovered fully. By the end of 2013, I was ready for the next stage. I could no longer completely rely on the rats for the data I needed. Although illegal and unethical, I modified the aging and impervious genes into my body through the retroviruses. I was anxious to test if the gene replacement had worked, but I had to force myself the 3 to 4 months I had allowed the rodents. I marked April Fool's Day 2014 as the day to experiment on myself. When April 1st, 2014 came, I was prepared. Perhaps being something of a coward, I chose to overdose myself on a very high dose of barbiturates. If I had not made myself invulnerable, at least I would have just fallen asleep and died painlessly. Swallowing 50 pills in 3 gulps, I initially sat in the recliner I had as my only furniture in the basement. That did not last long. I was nervous, and I jumped up and paced. Before long, I became very drowsy. My head swam. I tried to tell myself that initially I would react the same as anyone. I might even pass out, but I would wake up. And I would wake up without infliction. The world dimmed. My arms became heavy, and breathing became shallow. I tried to sit on the floor, but I lost consciousness before I made it. I awoke minutes later with a throbbing headache. It might have been from the drugs, or the bump on my head from digging the header into the concrete. Miraculously, I could feel the bump on my head going down and then disappearing. Soon after, my headache dissipated as well. I stood rejuvenated, a big goofy grin spread across my face. I was indestructible, immortal. I felt as if I was some great god standing on top of Mount Olympus. I was greater than any human that had ever walked the earth. I walked to the rats. I watched them scurrying around. They were at the pinnacle point in my experiment. Their natural lives would begin to expire soon. They were most likely the same as me, immortal and impervious. But as I watched them, they acted just like any rodent. Surely they felt no more special. I took a lesson from the lesser mammals. I was only part of a bigger plan. This was never about me alone. It was about sparing the world of the soul of death. Soon I would share my discoveries and gifts with the world. Over the next 2 years, I recorded much data on the rodents and myself. All the rats and I did not physically look different. We were more vitalized. I was fairly certain that not only did we not age, our bodies were building themselves back to our peak condition. Although I was now 51 years old in chronological time, I would soon have the inner workings of an 18-year-old. Looking at myself in a full-length mirror, I found the blonde mop of hair, thinning and turning gray. The half-beard stubble I possessed was salt and pepper as well. My stomach stuck out like a cow's udders. I wondered if eventually my body would work on the outside defects as well. While I was going through dozens of pages of notes spread all over the counter, I was paid a visit. I was not surprised, and I did not turn around right away. I could sense him staring at me as the room temperature dramatically dropped. I knew I would meet you sooner or later, I said over my shoulder. He did not speak. I stacked up my papers, shuffling them into an orderly pile. I have wanted to challenge you practically since birth, I announced. You hope to defeat death. The voice was guttural, with a coldness that impacted my mind like the frigidness of the bottom of a well. I slowly turned around and faced my visitor. He was standing in the far-off corner of the basement, in the darkest corner, as he had done in all of the history of life on Earth. There was a green-black mist about him, as if he wished to obscure himself further. Then I could see that he wore a Norse-style helmet with Ranger Ed protrusions sticking out from it. It covered his forehead and nose, but his mouth was visible. He pursed his lips tightly. I have defeated death, I answered directly. He was quiet a moment, as if sizing me up. I sense a fear in you, Lance Granger. I shrugged. I suppose that there is a primordial programming in all living things that cause me to have apprehension when facing death, but I can live with it. You plan on afflicting all humanity with your discoveries, the supernatural creature muttered. I do. The temperature dropped further. I could now see my breath coming in short gasps. Am I upsetting you, Death? I serve a purpose, mortal. If not for death, the world would be overrun with quick haste. We will have to have major life changes for that, I cannot deny, I shot back. I will not allow this, Death growled at me. I laughed out loud. Allow? You cannot stop me, demon. I have hated you my entire life, dark entity, and now I begin a new phase. I may not be able to kill you, but I can kill those close to you. I can take out millions until you abandon this rebellion, the creature hissed. I walked nearer to the being, and he seemed to shrink away, although minimally. You could do that, Reaper, but that is not advisable. It will take me decades to get this treatment to the masses. It will have to be approved for clinical trials, and the trials themselves will take years, and then perhaps another decade to get it to the people. I would say you have 30 or 40 years left to do what you do. That's 40 years to enjoy your hunt, your feeding, whatever you call it. You take out people for vengeance, you are only hurting yourself. I opened my refrigerator and extracted the bottle of champagne that I had bought just for this occasion. I popped the cork and poured a small amount into a glass flute. You see, Death, I have beat you at your own game. I have gave you a lifespan, as you have gave every living creature on Earth since life began. Enjoy your time, because you never know exactly when death will come. A low growl was building in the monster, and I could feel the ground shake slightly. I raised the flute in the direction of the dark demon, toasting him. Here's to you, Death Immortal, I cried, sipping the wine with great relish. The spirit screeched inarticulately, shaking my underground laboratory for long moments, but he disappeared without further debate. I had won. I had beaten death. It has been several thousand years since the encounter with the monster who ended lives. As predicted, I eventually was able to share my discoveries with the world. The last human death that I had heard about was about 30 years after my encounter with the creature, although he was able to wipe out most of the animals on Earth. Death is gone, and most don't even remember what it was like to lose someone they loved. Of course, we've had to stop having babies because 6 billion of us will live forever, and we're taking up most of the resources Earth can provide. Are we happy? Absolutely not. I have learned dozens of professions, hundreds of hobbies, but so have most of the people on Earth. It's been thousands of years, and it is still the same thoughts, the same motives, the same styles, and the same boring routines. I beat death in that glorious day, but yet, somehow, death beat me the very same day. The end. And, I have never read anything this long, but, I wanted to give it a shot. I don't think I'll probably do it too often, especially being restrained to, or constrained to 15 minutes, so, I'll probably flash up the title of what this is, the title of this story, and hopefully my mic sounds a little bit better than the last one, and